Now, I haven't done anything yet with interior other than getting the hardware stuff cleaned out and bringing some cars in for now. There's still plenty of other cars I have that'll be coming in. But we'll start over here on the right-hand side. This, of course, is my 1926 Model T Sports Roadster. Got this when I was 16. It was a bucket of bolts. It was spread out in a junkyard north of Waco in multiple places. We took a trailer up, loaded up the pieces, and at 16, I got it running, but I don't do body work. And so Ross Lilliker took the car several years ago, and we did the body work on it. Runs great, a lot of fun. We take it into different parades around town here. This was my first operating Model T. We got this when I was 14, 1924 touring car. This car got redone back, when I was 14 and 15, worked with Jake Caller to get the engine rebuilt. And it was cobbled together, but it worked, drove through college and everything else. And then here several years ago, again, I had Ross Lilliker redo this car. 1929 Model A. Now, this car doesn't belong to me. It actually belongs to an executive with Walmart. But the car was in New Mexico and had been in a garage fire. It was a total wreck, but her father had willed it to her when he passed away untimely. And so Ross rebuilt this car as well. Interior, everything, very fun car. 1941 Ford truck. This is the first vehicle I learned how to drive stick shift. My grandfather bought this new in 41. It's still pretty much the same patina on as it had back then. It did have a few encounters on the front end over the years because it used kind of as a farm vehicle. But anyway, runs great. We take it on to parades and things like that. Lots of fun. Actually runs down the highway pretty well. 1927 Fordson tractor. I bought this out of Pennsylvania. Engine was seized on it. And my youngest son, who didn't know the difference between a shoe and a piston, I hired to help me rebuild it. So it's been completely rebuilt, although we left all the patina on it. I don't know how much you know about the history of the Fordson, but in 1917 was when Ford was developing the tractor. He came from a farming family, and so at that point, the world was already on the road. And he gets a telegram from England saying that they're in the midst of World War I. The Germans have blockaded England, and they had converted their farmland to industrial. Problem was, with the blockade, they weren't getting food in, and so they asked Ford if they could ship him 7,000 tractors, and he says, I have one, and it's not perfect. And they said, well, we don't care if it's perfect or not. We need 7,000 tractors. And 7 months later, he delivered 7,000 of this tractor. This design was actually used all the way up through World War II. They used it in England during World War II as a tug at the military airports. And so if you'll see these in gray, generally that's going to be a British one. After the war, they moved Fordson production first to Ireland and then to England, where it remained for Ford tractors for the duration. The back area back here is where we restore cars and work on other things. One interesting thing here is this block. This is a 1941 Lincoln block V12, and it's my understanding that the same configuration was used by Jaguar up into the 70s in their race motors. 1913 Depot hack. Purchased this from an estate. It's mostly original. There are a couple things on there that aren't. They added a starter. Instead of having the carbide generator on the side, they put a pressure tank on it. And at some point, since I like my vehicles to be original, we'll probably take it back to a carbide tank. Runs great. We use it in parades. 56 T-Bird. Looks pretty bad, although it was owned by a gentleman who gave it to a friend of his to repaint. They stripped it down, set it outside, and then his friend had a heart attack. And the owner didn't bother to check on it for 2 years. In the meantime, it got a lot of surface rust. This vehicle, actually, we have it running great. Mechanically, it's solid, so soon here it will start the repaint process. A gentleman that works on cars here with me, Lee Martin, this is one of his project cars. Back in the back, this is a 53 Ford truck. This is a 50th anniversary truck, numbers matching, and we're in the process of doing a ground up on it. I've got the frame in the back that's all been powder coated. We put the engine in and then found we had a valve seat that came loose, and so we're having to rebuild the engine again. This is a 1929 Murray body Model A. A gentleman came up for our open house and was loving everything, and he mentioned that he had a Model A, and I said, well, that's great. Where is it? He says, well, it's sitting next to my house under a tarp. And I said, well, that's not good. Let's drag it up here. And so Lee went down and pulled it out of about 8 inches of mud. The engine was seized on it. We decided, though, that in order to get this guy interested in actually rebuilding it, and the owner, I went to school with his daughter. That's kind of how they ended up getting up here. So we pulled the spark plugs out and took a look down inside, and it was full of nuts. And I take that back. We didn't pull the spark plugs. 10 years ago, his grandson had decided he was going to get it running, and so he pulled the spark plugs and left them out. And so when we looked down in there, it was full of acorns and lots of other things, and of course, again, the engine was seized. So cleaned it out, put some Miracle Oil in it, magically, 30 days later, the engine's loose. So we're getting ready. We replaced the head gasket on it, replaced all the head bolts and everything. We cleaned up all the cylinders inside, and so we're kind of getting it on a minimum, get it running, and then go back to the owner and say, all right, we've got it running now. What do you say? Let's restore this vehicle, because this will be a really sweet one. It still has the original headlights, which personally I love. And then over here, these are just some different things. My mom collected carriages, had Governor Pease collections. This is one of the vehicles she trained with. This was not a Governor Pease vehicle, it was a training vehicle. Some prams and stuff like that, original high-wheel bicycle. Now we get to the newer cars. We'll start with this one here. This is, pull the cover off here a little bit. So this is a 1969 Ferrari Dino. Now this is the fourth one made. It has been certified by the factory as in original condition, all numbers matching. It's won all kinds of awards. Very sweet car. I bought this back in when I graduated from college. So in 1976, when nobody really wanted it, needless to say, now it's become pretty valuable. Next to that, 1979 Maserati Merak. I always wanted a Merak, and this car turned up in Texas for, well, I'd say dirt cheap, but it was inexpensive. It's been mechanically all gone through, interior's been redone. The paint, the car was a Laredo car, so as you can imagine with black paint in Texas and the heat doesn't do well, so it's waiting for a paint job. Of course, I still have the hotel project and a few other things I'm working on. And then this project car, my son and I got, it was basically a roller. And anyway, he didn't have the time to work on it. I didn't have the time to work on it. And so David Moore did the restoration work on it. Fun little car. And someday, maybe I'll get my money back out of it. And then finally over here, there's some other stuff. But this is a 1935 Fairmont Speeder. This is a railroad motor car. This is the first version of the motorized hand car. It's got a little one-lunger motor down inside there and little hit and miss motor. Last time I had this on the railroad, we ran it from Brady, Texas to Lomita and back. That's 120 miles. Actually, it was a lot of fun. Several of the other more modern railroad cars broke down, and we ended up pushing them with this guy, almost 50 miles. Anyway, so again, this will at some point be a nice museum, and again, obviously specializing in Ford vehicles. The connection, of course, you've probably seen Ford versus Ferrari. That's, I guess, the only connection I really have on the Dino. On the Maserati, though, you may remember the De Tomaso Pantera. Maserati, when this car was designed and was being built, it was by Citroën in France. And Citroën was having financial troubles, and so they decided to shut it down. Well, the Italian government got all excited and said, you can't shut down Maserati. And so they looked for a buyer for the company, and Alessandro De Tomaso stepped forward and purchased Maserati. This particular car was built under De Tomaso's management. And again, he made the Pantera, which was sold through Lincoln dealers for 1971 through 1974. Anyway, I hope you'll come visit. again, we got more cars coming in. I've got a Model TT 1-ton truck down in College Station that's getting finished up right now. And I've got a 59 Corvette fuel injection that's been restored that is down in Austin right now. I'm going to be bringing up. So again, hope you'll come visit. Thank you so much.